So there's been reports that Keith Thurman will be fighting Vergil Ortiz Jr. at the PBC card, I think in October or November. You know, of course, Keith Thurman, with his recent win over Brock Jarvis, in March, was calling out Tim Tszyu. He wanted Tim Tszyu, and obviously Tim Tszyu is a much easier fight than Vergil Ortiz. Right? Vergil Ortiz is at the moment undefeated, right at the top at 154. Probably the best guy currently at 154 that's fighting. I would say Boots Ennis. Boots Ennis hasn't made his debut at 154 yet, but when he does, he'll be right up there too. But like I'm saying, Vergil Ortiz right now is probably the number one guy. Him and Fundora, 1A, 1B at 154 at the moment, right? And ultimately, you look at the two guys' styles, you look at where both guys are in their career as well. I think a prime Keith Thurman would give Vergil Ortiz some serious problems, but we're not at a prime Keith Thurman anymore. We're at a Keith Thurman that was an undefeated unified world champion at welterweight. He was. But we're looking at Keith Thurman who was that. We're looking at Keith Thurman who got beat by Pacquiao. And we're looking at Keith Thurman who's much older and is now fighting at 154. And I think against these other top guys, he's probably lost too much of a step. The gap's widened too much between him and the top of the division because he's been so inactive as well. If Keith Thurman was fighting regularly at 154, even then, he's never really been a super active guy because he's had a lot of injuries in his career. But if we could have seen a active Keith Thurman at 154, there's no reason why he can't be in those conversations. Granted, I don't think he'd be in those conversations with the Ortizes and the Fundoras, but he's a tier below that, which I guess, to be fair, that is sort of where he's regarded at the moment, a tier below those guys, which is why I imagine Vergil Ortiz will be quite the heavy favourite going into this fight, and rightfully so. You look at, like I said, you look at the guys' resumes, you look at where each guy is in their career. Of course, on paper, Keith Thurman's got the better resume. He's been around for a little longer. He fought world champions at welterweight, but it's a different kettle of fish now. Vergil Ortiz is young, but he's got experience, he's got power, he's got boxing IQ. Of course, his last fight against Madrimov, he didn't start the fight particularly well, right? I remember watching that fight. I'm sure it was a Riyadh season card, and I'm watching the fight, and I'm seeing Vergil Ortiz box. I'm like, he's getting caught. Madrimov is timing him pretty well early on in the fight. He's just trying to be too cute. But once it's sort of like around the third or fourth round, once he realised, yeah, I'm Vergil Ortiz, I need to bang, right? He gritted down his mouth on his gum shield, hands up, went forward and put it on Madrimov a bit. It was definitely competitive because Madrimov is no slouch. Again, Madrimov is one of those guys who's right at the top at 154 as well, in his own right. And you've got a guy like Madrimov who's now coming off 2 losses. Again, I said this about Tevin Farmer, he's coming off 4 losses. Madrimov might be the best boxer in the world to be coming off 2 losses, right? So I don't know if Madrimov has got a fight booked yet, but he'll be right in the mix as well at the top at 154. But back to Vergil Ortiz. Of course, Vergil Ortiz, once he started to fight Madrimov a bit more, he stopped trying to box him because that wasn't working. That wasn't working. And to be fair, at the top level, you can't afford to give away those early rounds. In that fight against Madrimov, he got away with it. But you can't bank on that. And you can't bank on that with Keith Thurman, even though I think Madrimov is better than Keith Thurman at this point. You still can't be just giving around rounds to Keith Thurman. Because he proved against Brock Jarvis, if anything, he's still got a bit of power. Because he put Brock Jarvis on his arse. If anything, he's still got power. And of course, you've got that power mixed with the experience, mixed with the ring IQ. Keith Thurman's seen everything, right? Apart from the shots Pacquiao landed on him. He couldn't see those. But like I said, I don't think Keith Thurman's completely finished, but I think he's completely finished at the world level. I don't see him winning another world championship at welterweight or super welterweight, if I'm being honest. But I'd love Keith Thurman to prove me wrong. Honestly, I'd love him to prove me wrong, and maybe he can pick up a world title against Vergil Ortiz when this fight happens in November. If this fight happens, I don't think it's been confirmed yet. It's just rumours, but Keith Thurman, he went from calling out Tim Tszyu to getting a Vergil Ortiz fight. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing because, of course, a Vergil Ortiz fight, like I said, is a lot harder and a lot less winnable for him. I think he probably could have beaten Tim Tszyu if he fought him. Right? So we'll see what's next for both guys. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. If this fight happens, who do you think will win it? And yeah, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag, and I'm out. Peace.